one thing that's perfectly clear is that there are beings that behave like this to some degree that you're going to find in world traditions across the planet, no doubt. The connections, let's just take an example. The connections between UFO abduction phenomena and the nature of the aliens and the various stories that people have about them feature clear and obvious connections to the fairy lore of the West. There's just no question about that, even if you factor in the idea that some of the people who are organizing these UFO stories have a knowledge of and are influenced by fairy lore. It's not sufficient. There's clearly some aspect of human consciousness where the experience of entity, and particularly this character of a kind of mischievous, world-making, somewhat slippery kind of character is really pervasive. And so, you got to say, well, what is that? What is that kind of function of mind? Another example is, in a lot of in hypnagogic states. In a lot of hypnagogic states where people are hovering between sleep and waking, where they're kind of on the edge, the liminal edge of reality, there's often these extraordinarily real encounters with entities, much realer often than ones even in full-on dream states where everything is just kind of like some kind of weird movie. That in these hypnagogic environments, there's really a sense of extraordinary reality to the entities that are encountered, and they often have, a similar kind of signature. So we're clearly dealing with something very kind of basic and fundamental. It's really then becomes a question of what do you do with that? Where do you go with it? How do you enrich in it? And to my mind, one way is to know more about these stories, to know more about fairy lore, to know more about asuras. How do demons function inside the history of Western magic? What are the realms of power that exist in a shamanic worldview, where there's these constantly kind of shifting alliances? And I think there's some, real extraordinary gifts to be gained from entering into a world where there are entities of ambiguous, ethical standing, or where one does not know what's really going on, where you can't resolve it in an easy, good and evil kind of way. I think there's aspects to that shamanic worldview that are extraordinarily useful for human life in general, and even more for life at the lip of the extraordinary and in many ways quite disturbing transformations that are upon us here in the 21st century. And by that I mean a realm where alliances are shifting, where power is ambiguously shared, where the true nature of one's connections is not always known, where you have to kind of go by gut and intuition a lot of the time, and sometimes you're wrong, where you can't just have an easy map of what these things mean. And so I think there's something really powerful there that has always been kind of lurking on the edges of human consciousness and human culture, but it, has a kind of direct force to it that really kind of points towards ways of being, or points towards realms of being that in some ways I think we're kind of creating and constructing on our own. Again, even if you just look at our bastardized, crude, hyper-capitalist media entertainment, world, we're building these other worlds. We're building realms where identity is ambiguous and shifting, where the metaphors of magic and the supernatural are the kind of coin of the realm. We're doing that with technology. We're doing that with, immersive multiplayer games. And this is just the beginning. I mean, this is like the Model T phase of this stuff. And so there's something about these populated, imaginal worlds that seem kind of coming down on us. And it's almost like learning skills, navigational skills, interpersonal skills, in order to be able to move through these realms that are very different, but not so different than the social worlds we operate in day to day.